Something went so bad in one episode of I Love Lucy that Lucy and Ethel completely broke character, music. In the middle of the scenario, they burst out laughing. Their sincere response was so potent that the producers had to make a decision. Either keep this spontaneous moment or reshoot the entire scenario. The crew was surprised by what transpired next. Rather than canceling, they made a choice that would permanently alter television. It's not acting when you see people laughing on film. The passion is unrehearsed and pure. And they continued it for a sinister motive. Lucy and Ethel were making almost $5,000 a week combined before the cameras even started rolling, which was a respectable TV income in 1951. However, they intended to shoot the show on 35 admirers in Hollywood, which would have cost much more than CBS had budgeted. They therefore made what at the time looked to be a quite stupid offer. As long as they could retain complete ownership of the recorded episodes, they consented to accept a lower weekly salary. Reruns were deemed pointless at the time, thus executives hardly responded. People thought that since everyone would have seen a show once, it couldn't be presented twice. CBS then gave a nod and continued. Nobody anticipated that choice would spark a covert revolution. Because those 179 recorded episodes were repeatedly broadcast throughout the nation over the course of the following 10 years. After that, they expanded outside of the U.S. Lucy and Ethel sold those same shows back to CBS for over $4 million by the early 1960s. Generational wealth was created from a single salary decrease. It altered the company in a way that nobody anticipated. The surprises, however, didn't end there. Lucy wanted two individuals she already trusted, long before Vivian Vance and William Froley entered the picture. She had collaborated with Bonaderet and Gail Gordon in My Favorite Husband between 1948 and 1951. They portrayed Iris and Rudolph Atterbury, a married pair whose timing and rhythm seemed to be the ideal match for Fred and Ethel. Lucy and her authors were confident they would blend in perfectly with the new series. Their names were therefore at the top, music, of her list when I Love Lucy entered pre-production in 1951. Then, in the most common way, everything fell apart. Agreements. The George Burns and Gracie Allen program was associated with Bonaderet. Gordon was preoccupied with other television and radio projects. Despite their want to be present, both had to decline. Years later, however, the narrative took a more sympathetic turn. After leading Petticoat Junction from 1963 to 1968, Bonaderet rose to fame on her own, and Gordon subsequently joined Lucy in a number of subsequent productions. Music, although the parts vanished, their careers persisted. At the same time, Lucy and Desi were developing a show that would fundamentally alter television. Many people credited Desi with creating the three-camera technique when CBS agreed to debut I Love Lucy in 1951. However, Carl Freund and Al Simon were the true creators of music. With years of studio expertise, they knew how to take an existing idea and turn it into something dependable and crisp. Three 35mm Mitchell B&C cameras were set up to operate simultaneously. A wide shot was caught by one. The others chose close-ups and mediums. The performances continued unabated. Desilu rented the dilapidated General Service Studios on Las Palmas Avenue in order to do this work. Jimmy Nasser, the proprietor, allowed them to rebuild two soundstages even though the establishment was on the verge of bankruptcy. They nonetheless adhered to stringent fire code regulations while adding seating for roughly 300 people. When the team was done, the setup appeared completely different. It shocked the industry in 1952. In about 60 minutes of real time, an entire 20 to 22-minute program may be recorded. Scenes were performed in a single, uninterrupted beat. The actors didn't slow down. Editors received material that was extremely clear. And the program turned into Hollywood's most effective humor factory. On Monday night, October 15, 1951, at precisely 9:00 p.m. Eastern Time, families were sitting together and settling music in when it suddenly appeared on American television. And in just 1 year, almost half of all homes with a TV were watching this small half-hour sitcom. During that 1951 to 1952 premiere season, the number, music, had an average of roughly 23.3 million viewers and a 50.9 Nielsen rating. That was the only way anything else from that time period began. Season after season, the show continued to rise. It was the top show in America 4 times in a span of 6 years, from 1951 to 1957. That was a first for a scripted show. Additionally, the show was still at the top of the ratings when the last original episode aired in May 1957. It wasn't until the Andy Griffith Show ended in 1968 and then, music, Seinfeld in 1998 that such an exit occurred again. This degree of dominance on television seemed unimaginable for the early 1950s. But every Monday night, it was there. Then, on January 19, 1953, the nation witnessed an odd occurrence. The U.S. president was defeated by Lucy's pregnancy incident. The birth of little Ricky was featured in the Lucy Goes to the Hospital episode that evening, which attracted an estimated 44 million viewers, or around 71.7% of all television homes in the nation. Dwight D. Eisenhower took the oath of office the following day. Nevertheless, some 29 million people watched his inauguration broadcast. Therefore, a sitcom mother giving birth in a New York flat attracted over 15 million more viewers than a genuine general winning the presidency in Washington. It turned into the most obvious evidence that this program captured America's interest more than anything else. After 2 months, the show hit a peak that, when you read it, almost seems like an error. On March 8, 1953, 72.6% of all TV-owning households in the United States watched a single Monday broadcast of I Love Lucy. For just 1.5 hours of humor, Nielsen demonstrated that approximately 15.8 million TV households tuned in, which equated to nearly 431 near to 200 individuals. It meant that 2 of the 3 neighbors on a street in early 1953 were watching Lucy Ricardo that evening if they had televisions. Numerous additional programs from the same season were in the upper 60s and low 7s. The show had evolved beyond just amusement. People from all around the nation were laughing simultaneously in their living rooms, and it had evolved into a weekly national event. It is much more evident when looking at the figures from the first full season. In 1951 and 1952, CBS recorded an average viewership of roughly 23,363, music, with 100 viewers per program linked to a staggering 50.9 household rating. The same show was being watched in 1 out of every 2 TV homes with the set on. At that time, the majority of Americans were still purchasing their first televisions. I Love Lucy, however, had already started acting like a permanent national cliché. That combination of audience size and share was unmatched by any other brand new music series from the early 1950s. Networks and trade publications started viewing Lucy and Desi as a new breed of musician and television producer who could earn tens of millions of dollars each time they appeared on air. It was demonstrated with money. By 1953, the advertising revenue from each original show was about $1 million. That is about $11 million for a single 25-minute comedy program in today's currency. Because the show could consistently place its message in front of over 40 million viewers every music Monday evening, advertisers that marketed cigarettes or household goods were willing to pay that. Lucy's visage began to appear on toys, jewelry, clothing lines, comic books, and even advertisements for furniture. It produced one of the first empires of TV-based merchandising. This show evolved from a sitcom into a model for the contemporary television franchise that generates the majority of its music revenue well beyond the broadcast itself thanks to the combination of enormous ratings and an expanding consumer market. In the middle of 1952, Lucille Ball found out she was expecting a child, but the news did not make her happy as she had hoped. CBS bosses nearly shut down the entire event, so instead of celebrating, she walked straight into fear. In those days, seeing pregnancy, music, on television was seen as dangerous. People were concerned that it would offend viewers. Meetings were conducted, and there was a lot of tension in the room as they talked about discontinuing the series because some even claimed that families would quit watching. Jess Oppenheimer was determined to prevent that from occurring. Because he thought Lucy's actual pregnancy may become something new for the show, he persisted. He eventually persuaded CBS to permit it after much debate, but only after they established stringent guidelines. A Protestant pastor, a rabbi, and a priest had to review each script, music. This was the first time a pregnancy was shown on television by a major network, and it had a subtle but significant impact on the medium. More restrictions arrived as time, music, went on. The cast was prohibited from using the word pregnant anywhere, not even during rehearsals, thanks to the strict guidelines set by CBS and Philip Morris when creating music. Softer terms like music, expecting or having a kid, or the French word anti have to be used. However, there was a tiny weakness. The titles of the episodes were never shown on screen. Therefore, without violating any laws, newspapers published an ad titled "Pregnant Women Are Unpredictable." That small ploy demonstrated how bizarre broadcast control of music might be, even when a show made an effort to continue. Then came the historic night of music. Des Essarnes Jr. was born to Lucy via caesarean section on January 19, 1953. Meanwhile, a Lucy Goes to the Hospital episode was broadcast throughout the United States. It was viewed by more than 44 million people. That accounted for 72% of all households in the nation. Because the incident seemed so significant, movie theaters even projected the episode onto their large screens. It preserved the program, demonstrated that viewers desired authentic narratives, and influenced the future of television. The show wasn't flawless, of course. A microphone boom appeared in one nightclub scene and remained there for 53 consecutive seconds. It appeared to be invisible as it hung over the performers. Errors were often overlooked since early television music flowed so quickly. The crew concentrated on sound rather than image because they had only one microphone to record everything. Thus, the boom persisted. Because it lasted nearly a full minute, fans continued to draw attention to it. Other mistakes were also made. A wall that was meant to remain unseen sprang into view as Lucy dashed between rooms during the pilot. During a phone call, a camera, music, even rolled into the picture. Back then, 3 cameras operated simultaneously, and it was difficult to keep them all undetectable. Filming moved so quickly that there was no time to make such corrections. As a result, the moment continued to air and was added to the show's extensive catalog of endearing but minor mistakes. Occasionally, those mistakes were significantly larger. The old cars in Lucy Learns to Drive were completely inoperable, so the crew attached heavy black cords to them and hauled them into view. It is easy to see the cables swinging in the images, particularly when the cars are moving. High-definition versions make the cables much more noticeable, making the program a favorite among viewers who like spotting outdated production techniques. However, not every unexpected time was an error. Lucy disguised herself as a man in order to enter a club covertly in the mustache, music, episode. Her artificial mustache slipped off as she attempted to flee. Abrupt, music, genuine laughing erupted between her and Ethel. There was no plan. The producers decided to keep the take even though it wasn't in the script because of the genuine happiness on their faces. That scene became one of the most beloved bloopers in the entire program, and their relationship and timing flowed perfectly. Little edits also crept into the text. Ethel's middle name underwent multiple name changes. May in one episode, Louise in another, and Roberta in another. After the kid was born, the flat number even changed from 3B to 3D, and for a whole music season, Essarnes's name was shown in the end credits as Des Essarnes. Over time, these peculiar facts become entertaining trivia. Early sitcoms ran quickly, and anything that didn't advance the plot was frequently unintentionally left in. The biggest shock of all, however, came in September 1953 when gossip columnist Walter Winchell declared Lucille Ball to be a communist on his radio program. Music, just hours before filming in front of an audience, he made the statement. Immediately, panic struck the studio. The sponsors were terrified. CBS anticipated the worst. People were wrecked overnight by accusations like that while America was in the midst of the Red Panic. Lucy was concerned about her family as much as her career. The universe she created seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The truth about it dates back to 1936, when she was 25. Because her grandfather Fred Hunt was a fervent socialist, Lucy had registered to vote in California as a communist. Her brother and mother also signed up. The FBI discovered Lucy's declaration in 1952, but she never cast a communist ballot and her registration expired after 2 years. Music. They also discovered that she was classified as a Communist Party delegate from the California State Central Committee. It didn't matter anymore if she ever took that duty seriously. There were those documents. They became a source of fear once they were revealed. Lucy had already given 2 private testimony before WAC, one in April 1952 and the other on September 4, 1953. She claimed that the sole reason she registered was to please her grandfather. She maintained that she had no connection to the party, no interest in it, and no intention of joining it. WAC agreed with her justification. Even if they cleared her, the damage occurred after the news was leaked. Headlines became louder, people muttered, and her fear followed her everywhere. Her file was examined by Edgar Hoover himself. He reviewed the old registration records and her testimony. She made it clear to investigators that she was not and had never been a communist. As he frequently did with celebrities, Hoover left her case open even after the committee cleared her. It demonstrated how stressful music was at the time and how much focus was placed on performers who influenced popular opinion. Desi Arnaz came forward when the scandal threatened to overshadow the performance. He brought together the sponsors, the network, and the media. With a statement that would reverberate for decades, he stood in his house and defended his wife. According to him, Lucy's hair was the only thing that was read about her, and even that was untrue. He gave Hoover a call. Hoover affirmed that Lucy was safe. After informing everyone of the news, Desi led Lucy in front of the live crowd. The audience stood up. Like a rescue, the applause swept over her. That was the end of the crisis. The program made it through. Lucy's career continued. And because someone who loved her resisted letting fear win, television managed to hold on to one of its biggest performers. When Vivian Vance found that she would be paired with William Frawley on I Love Lucy in 1951, she felt sick to her stomach. She was 42. His age was 64. Music. She wasn't good at hiding the fact that she was troubled by the age difference from the beginning. She called him an old crap behind his back and joked to producers that she was getting married to that old coot. When Frawley heard the whispers, he immediately retaliated. He referred to her as old fat ass and said music so frequently that it became a daily routine on the set. Like clockwork, they insulted me. However, they slipped into Ethel and Fred as if nothing was wrong when the camera light turned red. In between takes. Quiet. The crew pretended not to notice the frigid space that stretched between them, no small conversation, no eye contact. Greg Oppenheimer revealed years later how upset Vance was about the age difference and how much she detested the notion that viewers believed she belonged with him. During episodes, she even made fun of Fred, music, as "Oh Fat Freddy." Over the course of the show's 7-year run, each punch widened a wound that never went away. The resentment persisted even after My Love for Lucy ended in the late 1950s. The idea of a spin-off centered on Fred and Ethel was discussed by the producers. The thought made Frawley smile. Vance immediately put an end to it, even though it seemed like a means of preserving his career. Instead of working alone with Bill Frawley, she stated that she would want to retire. She also thought that Lucy and Desi were the only reason the Mertzes were successful. She believed the play would fail without it. The initiative was quickly destroyed by her reluctance. In order to avoid standing next to him once more, she even declined a bonus check. When asked about it on the Dinah Shore program in 1975, Music grinned and stated she had no regrets. Early on in the show's existence, the worst part occurred. Sometime in 1952, Broly heard Vance griping to the producers about their age gap. She had claimed that the audience would never accept her as that elderly man's wife. He was more affected by the comments than she realized. He expected respect rather than humiliation because he had, music, spent decades in vaudeville. He no longer gave her the benefit of the doubt after that day. The mood on set grew chilly as his insults, music, became more acerbic and intimate. The fight was discussed in whispers for years. Frawley, for sure, never forgot it. Everything got worse because of his drinking. Desi Arnaz was forced to include stringent clauses in Frawley's contract, music, threatening to terminate him if he appeared intoxicated. He, music, continued to drink frequently despite the warning. He kept his hands in his pockets while on camera because they trembled so much. His mood swings and abrupt outbursts of rage were a source of complaint for the crew. He went to Nicodel far too frequently, that era even paid someone to come get him. His addiction weighed heavily on the entire set. But once the camera started rolling, he was always able to deliver. And because he was so talented and Arnaz had a soft place for him, he kept him around. News of Frawley's heart attack death on March 3, 1966, spread quickly. When Vivian Vance heard, she was eating dinner with friends. Rather than sulking, she raised her glass and uttered celebration for everybody. Unsure of what to say, everyone at the music table just gazed at her. She avoided any memorial gatherings and declined to talk about him when reporters called. She didn't say anything for years. Frawley's rejection was confirmed by crew members and even family members. Fans who had watched the two of them argue and fall in love on TV for 7 seasons were taken aback. Vance had made no mention of love in her farewell remarks. Meanwhile, Desi Arnaz was encircled by another storm. Between 1951 and 1957, when I Love Lucy dominated television, Scott Bowers said he set up 2 or 3 ladies every week for Desi. Bowers started out as a petrol station employee before becoming a covert fixer in Hollywood. Desi's 2012 memoir claims that he enjoyed music with any attractive girl who was a quick lay, and the majority of the women were unaware of his identity. Even as Lucy's fame skyrocketed, the pace hardly eased. Parts of Bowers's tale were eventually corroborated by journalists and biographers, lending credence to the assertions. In the middle of the 1950s, Lucille Ball confronted Bowers at a party. She approached him directly and yelled, "How dare you pimp for Desi in front of everyone?" After years of rumors, it seemed like a pressure release at last. Bowers insisted that he just carried out orders despite claiming embarrassment. The confrontation was later corroborated by writers looking into Hollywood's underground, who described it as one of the few occasions Lucy publicly admitted her infidelity. Does DIY Really Love Lucy was the headline of the January 1955 issue of Confidential magazine, which also stated that he used Vice dollies and detailed an event at the Beverly Hills Hotel where a pal ordered 2 medium-rare cuties. At its peak, Confidential had over 5 million subscribers, therefore the controversy was widely publicized. The magazine was sued for other celebrity exposes, but the harm to DeCessi's reputation persisted. Music, the article was discussed for years. Finally speaking for himself, Music, DeCessi wrote his memoir, a book, in 1977. He said that both he and Lucy had cheated on each other. He acknowledged that as the conflicts grew more frequent, their romantic life collapsed and they both sought solace elsewhere. By the late 1950s, he claimed, he had not slept in their master bedroom for almost a year. Stars from that era never disclosed such harsh truths, thus his candor shocked many. The memoir is frequently cited by biographers as the best source of information about their marriage's breakdown. Lucy Arnaz, their daughter, subsequently characterized her father's affairs as a peculiar and unusual music issue. She claimed that despite his intense love for Lucy and the family, he was unable to give up on other women. Although Lucy was aware of the cycle, she eventually found it intolerable. Years of conflict came to an end with their 1960 divorce. After that, Lucy remembered, things were better since the strain had finally subsided. Her observations demonstrated the profound emotional impact of the betrayal on the family. Lucy and Desi continued to make groundbreaking choices in the midst of all this turbulence. In order to film I Love Lucy music, rather than broadcast live, they decided to reduce their weekly salary from $5,000 to $4,000 in 1951. CBS declined to cover the cost of filming. As a result, Lucy and Desi agreed to let Music take the cut in exchange for maintaining ownership of every episode that was filmed. They now owned 80% of the company. Their pay decreased to about $2,000 per episode by 1953. However, the risk paid off. Being the owners of the episodes made them more than just celebrities, and the show became a nationwide hit. They became pioneers as a result. For $4.5 million, or roughly $40 million in today's currency, they sold the syndication rights back to CBS in 1960. Desilu Productions, their business, continued to develop as a powerful force. Everything was captured on 35mm film, which was pricey but ideal for reruns. They were involved in the founding of the Andy Griffith Show in 1960 and the Untouchables in 1959. Lucy became the first music woman to head a major TV studio when she paid $3 million for Desi Music's shares after he quit Desilu in 1962. In 1966, Desilu oversaw the green lighting of both Star Trek and Mission Impossible. Later, both series became billion-dollar behemoths. I Love Lucy isn't going away. Millions of people stream it annually more than 70 years after its debut. Every year, almost 40 million people watch reruns in the US alone. In 2013, almost 6 million people watched a colorized Christmas special on CBS. Almost half of all TV homes watched the program throughout its initial run. Approximately 72% of TV homes, or 44 million people, watched the pregnancy episode in 1953. The program has aired in over 100 countries and been translated into dozens more languages. From October 15, 1951, until May 6, 1957, the program ran for 6 seasons, producing 179 episodes of music. By demonstrating the potency of taped sitcoms and reruns, it won 5 Emmys and helped to influence television's future. Decades later, the model they developed continues to generate revenue for studios. The program has a global audience and continues to draw new viewers each year. When Lucy sold Diesel Salute to Paramount in 1967 for $17 million, or roughly $156 million in today's currency, her fame only rose. She had launched shows, managed the studio, and established industry standards for years. Her choices about ownership, syndication, and production influenced the development of television as we know it today. She is still regarded as one of the most significant personalities in entertainment history, and the shows she championed are still influencing the business today.